So we're not going to be advocating peptide use. We're not going to be advocating the use or the negatives or positives. It's not what we're here for. We're going to be talking about the general landscape of peptides and the unmistakable fact, and this is black and white. I think before we get fully started, we should probably introduce each other to the audience, although many of people may know myself and the very famous Toxic Avengers. No, sorry, Rick Collins, the Peptide Lawyer is his new acronym. Would you like to introduce yourself, Rick, to the audience?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So my name is Rick Collins. I'm an attorney in New York, but I work all over the U.S. on variety of cases in the health and fitness field. Some people have called me the lawyer for the fit and jacked.
The fit and jacked, I like that.
Yeah, so most of my work is in the area of health and fitness, dietary supplements. Drew and I went out to Guangzhou, China a few years ago.
Many years ago.
To lecture and speak about dietary supplement regulations in the U.S. And I'm very happy to be here to talk about peptides.
Thank you, Rick. Very happy Rick's joining us, and I will wait till the end, but Dr. Seiji Aoyaji, we like to say, our samurai scientist all the way from Tokyo, Japan. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay.
Maybe in English and Japanese.
Okay. So I'm Seiji Aoyagi, and I'm a nutrition specialist. I'm also acting as a GPNi Japan director, so we have the Japanese language to learn about the sports nutrition. I've been in the pharmaceutical nutrition business for a while, but now I'm in the sports nutrition. That's why I'm here, the ISSN conference in beautiful Florida. I know it's raining a lot in Japan, but now it's sunny here. 青柳です。よろしくお願いいたします。今まで、結構栄養の世界ではいろんなところに顔を出させていただいたんですけども、今までは臨床栄養をやっておりましたが、最近はスポーツ栄養で、日本では国際スポーツ栄養学会の日本支部の代表をしております。よろしくお願いいたします。
Okay, thank you, Dr. Seiji, and thank you, Rick Collins. People that don't know me, Drew Campbell. I've been in the sports nutrition space for over 30 years. I started lifting weights, pumping protein when I was 12 years old, and I am absolutely obsessed with this space. I should have probably chosen a different career because you can make a lot more money in different spaces like real estate, but I stuck at it for 30 years and I do it absolutely because I love it. I got up early this morning, partly because I was absolutely jet lagged and had a 5 a.m. workout and had my protein shake. So absolutely love this space. I'm honored to be sitting on either side of these two gentlemen who've joined us. And as I like to always say, for the multiple companies I run in sports nutrition, I stand on the shoulders of giants. Well, especially sitting to this gigantic guy standing on the shoulders of giants. So today's topic is peptides. What the hell are they? And we're not, for those in the audience, we're not going to be talking the bro science, and we're not going to be the bros on TikTok. And no, there's not going to be a link in my bio to follow the research, if you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
All the Instagram and TikTok users pushing peptides.
Or discount code. The
discount code. Check the bio for the research. And, Dr. Trevor, if you know, he's one of the most famous guys. And check the research in the bio. We're not going to be pushing peptides. We're not going to be advocating peptides. I'm sorry for the guys out there that are looking for a discount code or the inside hack. That's not what we're here for. Firstly, Dr. Seiji is going to be talking about diets that are scientifically, nutritionally backed, that may support people on, especially the GLP-1s, which are the only ones presently in most of the world, I think the entire world, that are black and white legal. And you can get from the doctor. And my man Rick, the peptide lawyer. What's your new name? You used to be the anabolic lawyer.
Right, so now it's the Peptide Lawyer.
The Peptide Lawyer, okay. So our Peptide Lawyer, well, for the US, not for global, is going to be talking about the regulatory, which is becoming more black and white because there's so much pressure from the Eli Lillys and the not the peptide companies, the pharmaceutical giant juggernauts. As he'll explain, but there is a lot of grey area, and that's going to be there. But so we're not going to be advocating peptide use. We're not going to be advocating the use or the negatives or positives. That's not what we're here for. We're going to be talking about the general landscape of peptides and the unmistakable fact, and this is black and white. In probably the last 50 years, there's been nothing like it in the industry. Creatine had its hype, the CBD had its hype, but nothing compares to peptides in probably the last 50 years.
Yeah, it's funny. I was speaking to somebody a little bit earlier who was contacted by some folks in Hollywood, big shots in Hollywood, asking about peptides for their dog. Okay, so I'm not sure what they want, what benefits they want the dog to have. Maybe less wrinkles, or maybe the dog would lose some weight, or whatever it is, or potentially longevity. But that just shows how deeply and wide this interest is, and so you really have people who you wouldn't even expect to be asking questions about peptides. Whether it's golf dads, CEOs in business.
Correct.
I mean, this isn't just the guys and ladies in the gym. This is really now mainstream. And you're right. I haven't seen anything, whether creatine, CBD. We're having kind of a mainstreaming of protein now. Certainly, you can now get a shot of protein in your coffee, and so protein has become much more mainstream than it was years ago when you and I were just in sort of the gym niche culture.
And it's affected supply chains of protein as well. I mean, the impact of GLP-1, which is the main peptide. It is a peptide, but there are, I don't know how many other peptides are there. Every second day there's a new one. There's the MK57 and the SS31 and the MOTC and the whole 9 yards. But the main one that everyone's talking about and using is the GLP-1s, the semaglutide, whether it's the Ozempic, the Mounjaro, or the new improved, the 3 agonist, retatrutide, which is actually nowhere legally black and white, but it's the number one in the world.
Yeah. So let's just do some definitions. So everybody throws around the word peptide. I hear it from people who are outside the fitness culture, and so they're trying to figure out what we mean when we say peptides. And peptide is short chains of amino acids, the building blocks of protein.
Yes.
And so there are many types of peptides. Insulin, for example, is a peptide.
Is a peptide.
Growth hormone is a peptide.
191.
So
amino acids.
Correct. And
bonded together to make a peptide.
So you've got collagen is a peptide. So there are peptides that are in the nutritional space that are available as dietary supplement products, but that's not really the focus of what we're going to talk about in the regulatory sense.
Correct.
What I would at least throw for us to kind of frame out the issues, I would throw 3 buckets as peptides.
Sure.
One is what you've said is the GLPs, that the semaglutide, the tirzepatide. When you see here in the United States, we have commercials all day long on television about, ask your doctor about Ozempic or Wegovy or Zepbound.
And 20% of America's population, 20% is using a form of GLP-1.
So
20%.
So
and that's what's driving the protein crisis in the world. Absolutely. One of the many reasons, there's many reasons to it, but I'd say it's the main reason why you guys on the call, why your protein has spiked through the roof and will continue to spike through the roof. And it's gone up, protein prices, whey protein particularly, has gone up in price in the last 3 or 4 years, approximately 150%.
Right.
The WPC about 200%, the WPI about 150%, and it's not coming down. Right. And that's driven why?
And that's the comment, because when you take these GLP-1s, and again, these GLP-1s, the semaglutide, the tirzepatide, we'll talk about retatrutide in a minute, but those are prescribed by physicians.
Correct.
Those are FDA approved in the
FDA
United
approved,
States.
yes.
And so you can go to your physician and they can be prescribed for, they were originally researched for diabetes, but now it's weight loss.
Correct.
So, we have in the United States, I think it's close to 70% overweight and obese. So you've got
70%.
this huge market of people who, hey, I can't lose weight, I'm going to try this GLP-1 drug, and that'll help me lose weight. One of the problems is that some of that weight loss is muscle. It's
Correct.
not all fat.
CJ, would you like to talk about the side effects when it comes to GLP-1?
Maybe I could go through my presentation. I'll cover all that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
CJ's
So-
going to do a presentation, everyone, and covering the nutritional components or recommendations for those using not any peptide, particularly the GLP-1.
Yeah.
Thank you, CJ.
Okay, so for me, being in the nutrition field, the peptide meant, like what the Rick was explaining, it's hydrolyzed peptides. But the GLP-1 and the other drugs, the peptide drugs, is very new to me, and I'm sure it is new to a lot of the audience from Japan and from China, perhaps. But here, like you said, 20% of Americans are on this drug. So I was very, stunned by the fact that so many people are using this peptide.
I'll just like to add, that's 20% of those legally getting it from doctors. As far as the grey market, which could be a hell of a lot more.
And we'll talk about those
it
other
could be higher
Yes.
than 20%, just
Sure.
to clarify. And that's in North America. It's certainly not in Japan, China, and other markets.
But I think it's
America's
coming.
always...
But it's on the way.
It could be on the way.
So I'll be talking about the GLP-1 in particular in terms of nutritional recommendation and what is happening with its population receiving GLP-1 therapy. So this is just basically the drug market. As you could see, in 2024 alone, it was a $14 billion market globally, and most of this was in the U.S. But as you could see, the market is growing, which means it's not going away. Okay, and I heard yesterday that there are many more new class of these peptides are coming on the market. So we need to talk about, or we need to understand what the nutrition implications are for this. And just to explain what the glucagon-like peptide 1, GLP-1, is, it's the real name is it should be GLP-1 receptor agonist, not just the GLP-1, because the GLP-1 is a natural hormone that we secrete from small intestine. But what it is, it's a receptor agonist that blocks the GLP-1 receptor, and it mimics the natural GLP-1. And the effects of GLP-1, the exogenous GLP-1 receptor agonist, is one is suppress appetite, it slows gastric emptying, and then it also stimulates insulin secretion and inhibits glucagon release, therefore decreases glucose production. And this leads to accelerated weight loss in obese population. And it was started as it's a treatment drug for diabetes, but now many people are using for weight loss. Because this GLP-1 receptors exist in many organs throughout the body, it could have different effects. And we just scratch the surface of this GLP-1 use, and we might potentially see different indication for this GLP-1 drug in the future. Right now, it's just basically obesity and weight loss.
Addictions.
Addiction.
Well, that comes in when you're going into the 3 agonists. So you've got the GLP, which is now the new retaglutide, the Lamborghini of the weight loss. But it has been shown to stop alcoholism, sexism, not sexism. Those addicted to sex. Yes, you cannot be sex addiction. Not being a sexist, but smoking and other things as well. So it actually changes the brain chemistry.
Right. But the people don't really talk about the side effects of this GLP.
Correct, and that's what you're going to talk about.
And that's what I'm going to talk about here is first that these people receiving GLP-1 gets a lot of the gastrointestinal disorders, and a lot of diarrhea, vomiting, and nausea, so that people are not willing to eat. Maybe that's the reason why people will have a lower intake. And then another serious one is actually sarcopenia. The people lose lean body mass by, not just losing body fat, but also lose lean body mass. And I'll get into this, the difference between fat loss and a weight loss. It's different.
And you can tell this guy's not on a GLP-1. These guns.
Yeah. And I heard some people actually lose hair as well.
Oh, really?
The GLP-1, yes. So, anyhow, so there are many side effects that the physicians prescribing this drug to patients should know, and also the patients should know these side effects. So the weight loss with GLP-1 injection is actually remarkable. I mean, if you think about it, I go to gym and sweat 5 kilos every day, and it's pretty hard to do that. But if you inject GLP-1, look at this graph. People could lose 18% of body weight. It's body weight, not the fat. It's body weight loss.
And he's making that distinction. He'll talk about that body weight.
It's body weight, not the fat loss. It's a body weight. But what happens after, if you stop the therapy, you actually have a rebound, and that's something people don't really talk about. But so it's almost addictive if you start injecting GLP-1. And I know some patients actually increase dose, and with the increasing dose, there's a cost implication as well. So you may be spending $500 a month on this therapy.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap, and if you quit, your weight will come back. So what people should know is you actually should have a fundamental change in your eating habits and what you choose. And
prioritize protein.
Prioritize protein, right. So I'll talk about that. So,
by the way, to go a little bit off, did anyone see, and we should probably put a clip on that South Park episode where they're addicted to Ozempic peptides, and what's the father of
Hartman or
Did you see that episode where they're having the Ozempic parties and they're totally addicted to Ozempic, and they go, Ozempic parties, like Tupperware parties, like for women,
Yeah.
but they're Ozempic parties because they're so addicted to the fat.
right?
Absolutely
Crazy.
classic.
Yeah, it is.
We should edit that into the YouTube version. Sorry, man.
And when we do talk about these, we're focusing now on this first bucket, this GLP-1 bucket. They're primarily injectable, right? And so people should understand it's subcutaneous, so it's not an intravenous injection. It is just into the belly fat with a small insulin needle. But there are now some oral preparations that are also on the market now that people should be aware of.
Okay, so this photo I took about 2 days ago in a mall, just a few minutes from here. This is for people in Japan or in China. It's amazing to see in a mall, shopping mall, have a walking health clinic, and they're promoting this medical weight loss. So people could just, when they go shopping, and stop by at a place like this and get a shot of GLP-1
or testosterone,
TRT,
or NAD plus.
This is really mind-boggling for me.
Okay, let's go and, honey, can you go and pick up a carton of milk and a loaf of bread? And get a testosterone and a GLP-1 shot while you're down the shop. That's how mainstream it is in North America at the moment.
Yeah, it is amazing for me, at least coming from Japan.
It's not in China.
We don't see this at all. So it's really amazing. But so for these walk-in clinics, you really have to have a comprehensive program to cover not just injecting, but you also should have a lifestyle recommendations. You should have a nutrition lifestyle guidance. You should do all those lifestyle, eating habit, so on and so forth, in conjunction with GLP-1 injection. Otherwise, these people could be at risk. What I'm talking about here about the fat loss versus weight loss.
Absolutely.
Now the fat loss, you're losing just body fat, okay, and that improves fitness, reduces stress, peak performance, delay aging, reduce risk of disease, and so on and so forth. It's beneficial. But if you focus just on weight loss, it could be resulting in a decreased fitness, decreased strength, poor performance, dehydration, early aging, whatever. So you want to be focusing on not just the weight loss, but you need to focus on how do you get rid of your fat
and retain the muscle.
Retain the muscle, right?
Correct.
So I'll show you in a graph. This is a PFC balance, what it's called protein, fat, and carbohydrate balance. This is how your diet caloric distribution should be, should be. This is how it is in many people who are obese. Okay, so the protein is only 13%, fat is 40%, high fat diet, and carbohydrate is like 47%.
This is the average person.
Average person.
Average fat person.
Average fat
obese,
person.
sorry, I should be using the politically obese
person.
A person with obesity.
Obesity.
Is that the
person with obesity?
Person with obesity.
Yes, that's now the
So-
preferred term.
Okay, so that's the politically correct term.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're consuming, let's say, 3,200 kcals a day, okay, with this type of distribution among the protein, fat, and carbohydrate. But if you're on a GLP-1 therapy, your intake shrinks, but you'll be eating similar food because, not just because you injecting GLP-1, you're not all of a sudden changing your, meal preference. So let's say you're eating meals that has the same proportion of the caloric distribution, same as what you were eating before, then you'll be eating about 59 grams of protein. Okay, that's 13% of your caloric intake. Your caloric intake goes down from 3,200 to 1,800, okay, because of the GLP-1, and you lose your appetite and so on and so forth. So the protein intake drops to 59 grams, but you should be eating almost more than that. Okay, so if you change your diet to a healthier ratio, which would be instead of 13% protein, you want to be eating 35% protein. Okay?
More than double.
Double. And then you reduce your fat intake from 40% to 20%. Now, if you compose your diet in this PFC ratio, totaling 1,800 kilocalories, you will be consuming 158 grams of protein. Now, let's assume you did not change your food choice, and then if you say you change your food choice, the difference is almost 100 grams of protein per day.
That's huge.
Okay, that's huge. Okay, and so if you don't change your food choice and so forth, you have protein deficiency, and then that could result in the muscle loss.
I'd like to add, although you're probably going to talk about it, not everyone's following Dr. CG's advice or their doctor's advice on changing their diet, but many are. And because of that, I wanted to point out this fact. Not only the protein intake for those who were never consuming protein before in their lives, we're talking tens and tens of millions in North America alone, tens of millions, but this is extended globally. There's far more protein intake of those who've never taken protein. But another interesting fact, there's also far less fat intake any time before. And the production of whey protein, you know where I'm heading on this, is dependent on what?
The prices certainly that are coming out of
Cheese.
Oh, well, yeah.
Cheese.
The production of whey protein dependent on cheese. And what, Dr. Seijo Aoji, our samurai scientist, expert on nutrition, what is the main macronutrient in cheese?
Fat.
Fat! Okay, so what has been happening to fuel this protein crisis beyond out of control, there's far more protein intake with tens of millions of people that never taken protein before. There's far less fat intake, less fat, and to produce whey protein, you need to produce cheese. But now there's far less people eating cheese. Therefore, if people are eating less cheese, when you're producing the whey protein, you can't discard it. You can't throw it in the rubbish because you need to make money out of the entire ecosystem of the milk. We've got our expert in protein production and milk, Benoit, behind us, who's nodding. So this GLP-1 is just changing people's diet, changing people's lives, but in changing the food supply of the world as well. It's just fascinating, and it's only just begun.
Yep. Good. So I want to talk about the protein and exercise position stand that ISSN puts out for the athletes. Okay, we need to eat like athletes. This position paper tells you to exercise first. I mean, that always comes in an ISSN position paper. But the recommended protein intake for athletes is about 1.4 to 2 grams of per kilograms of body weight. Okay. Previous recommendation for I'll talk about this later, but for the normal population was about 1 gram. But for the athletes, you need to increase protein intake because you exercise and you're using your muscles. But during energy restriction, this happens in athletes when they want to lose weight. They reduce their food intake, which would be sort of like patients on a GLP-1. You need to take more, 2.3 to 1.1 grams of protein per kilogram body weight. So when you're reducing a caloric intake, GLP-1, you need to increase protein intake, just like athletes. Okay, and this position paper tells you to spread your intake. Like every meal should have about 20 to 40 grams, and then you should be eating not 3 meals but 6 meals, and you spread your intake into 6 different small meals.
And this is all in the ISSN
All in
position stand.
ISSN position stand.
So if those are not, and you should be, especially if you're at the ISSN conference, please read the ISSN position stand, especially on protein. And by the way, it's also in Japanese language,
Yes,
the position
it is.
stand on
It's
protein,
translated.
and all the position stands, also in Chinese simplified, also Chinese traditional, and even South Korean as well. So, you don't have an excuse. And shortly, hopefully, in Spanish language as well.
Good. And most importantly, you need to eat high quality protein. That's what this position paper stands. And I'll talk about this high quality protein, which kind of tells you that in the next line is, you need to have a lot of essential amino acids.
So is collagen a high quality protein, Dr. Seijo Aji?
I'll talk about
Collagen. Are you going to talk about
Yeah,
that?
I'll talk
interrupting.
about the collagen. Okay, so to assess protein quality, we look at the methods called the amino acid score. The old amino acid score is like a bucket. You're missing this one particular amino acid, and that becomes the limiting amino acid. But that's just by analyzing what's in your protein. The better one is you actually incorporate the digestibility of protein, which was introduced in 1991 for the Peptides. However, this Peptides looks at your fecal digestibility, which means you are counting the digestion of protein by microbes in your large intestine, which overestimates digestibility. Now, the most accurate and most recent method to assess amino acid score is called DIAS. It's a digestible, indispensable, essential amino acid, which looks at not the fecal digestibility, but it looks at the ileal digestibility. So you will not introduce the digestion by the microbes in the large intestine. And also the score does not cap at 1. It could be higher. If the protein quality is higher, then it will be higher. So by using the DIAS, you could assess more accurate protein quality. So you should be looking at this DIAS number in order to choose high quality protein. Now, I won't get in too far into DIAS methodology, maybe too geeky for many people. So, but you could do with animal models, but you could also do a in vitro system, and then people could actually mimic human digestion by using these in vitro methods, and they've been validated. So the numbers we get from these in vitro methods are very accurate.
Just wanted to make a point on that, and people all know the phrase, you are what you eat. Everyone knows that. But it's not accurate at all. It's you are what you digest, it's you are what you assimilate. And what Sanjay is discussing here is protein quality is determined on protein digestion. So though certain foods may be very high in protein, like collagen, like rice, like soy, they don't have a high digestibility, and B, they may be limiting in the key essential amino acids that determine muscle protein synthesis, like leucine, which is the king of the amino acids for muscle protein synthesis, or just general health and well-being. And that's what he's referring to the DIAS method, a way to measure protein quality. Again, it's not about the food consumption, but the quality of the food that determines the digestion of the food.
Right. So using this method, I'll skip the slide that gets into the small details of how you measure, but this one, well, maybe next slide may be better one. So comparing Peptides and DIAS, you could see these scores of different protein source. And if you look at the second one from the top, whey protein isolate, WPI, the DIAS score is 1.09, the Peptides is 1.0. But if you look at the soy protein isolate, the DIAS score is 0.89, but the soy protein isolate B is 0.9, whereas the Peptides is 1. So using Peptides, WPI, WPC is treated equal as the soy protein, which is not accurate.
Now, did you tell me the conspiracy behind that, or someone did at Expo West last year? The conspiracy behind Peptides.
No, tell me.
The conspiracy was, it may be a conspiracy, everyone's wearing a tinfoil hat these days, right?
Okay, yeah.
But the conspiracy is that back in 1991, when soy protein started becoming crazy big, they were the ones behind bringing out Peptides. And as CJ was explaining here, if you use the Peptides rule, then superficially, soy protein
looks better than it
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah. So, well, it's just sort of distilling down for anybody who is on a GLP-1 or is thinking about a GLP-1 for weight loss. What I've gotten from CJ is, number one, the side effects that you got to be aware, and that's something to discuss with a doctor. And sometimes, side effects are acceptable because if you are 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight and you're pushing up toward a pre-diabetic or even a diabetic state, the trade-off is, yes, you're going to have potentially some side effects, but those can be dose titrated and adjusted based on the amount of the GLP-1 that you're taking, but also that this is not just a magic bullet. It's not like you're taking a GLP-1 and that's going to immeasurably improve your health. You do need to take high quality protein. And the importance of that
100%.
should never be understated. And I'm sure resistance training too, because of the muscle loss. You're losing body mass, and so part of that is fat. That's the good part. Less of that is a good thing.
Absolutely.
But you don't want to lose muscle, because muscle is the organ of health. Muscle.
The organ of health. I've never heard that before.
I think
You've got a few catchphrases.
I've got a few that I've probably stolen that from Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, I think. But the point is that the research, as you both know, shows that the amount of muscle that you carry into later years is highly correlated to both your health span and your lifespan. So carrying more muscle, super important. So you don't want to lose that muscle. And the way that you're going to keep it is high quality protein,
exercise,
resistance training, and we can talk maybe about creatine and how creatine can play a role in trying to keep the muscle, so you lose the fat and you keep the muscle, or maybe even gain muscle, because that's really the goal, right? To change the body composition so that it's a higher ratio of muscle to fat.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rick. I mean, one thing I'm sure people have heard of, the Ozempic butt. Have you heard about the Ozempic butt?
Yes, Ozempic face as well, as you probably heard.
The Ozempic face and
as you lose,
butt.
And this is something women are concerned about, because when women lose a lot of the fat and it goes out of their face, it does give a harder look. It's probably less socially palatable than for a man who has a harder
But it's
face.
also because they're losing too much muscle as well as the fat, and then everything shrinks. Because if you retain good lean muscle, even muscle in your cheeks, muscle in your bottom, for ladies, you won't get the Ozempic butt. So what?
And they have to train. So
have to train,
train
they have
those
to eat
glutes,
protein.
right? So
have to
so
train, they
do
have to
your
eat
glute
protein.
exercises so you
and
don't
take
get those.
and take creatine. So
All
if-
very positive.
all very positive. If you're looking at this, and Sage will go in a little bit further into this, if you are on a GLP-1 or you're not on a GLP-1, irrelevant. Lifestyle is the absolute catalyst and really the only thing you should be doing. And I would say if you're on a GLP-1, I would recommend it even more so because you're going to have less side effects and more positive benefits. And you should be working with a doctor. I myself work with a doctor. Every 3 months, I get a full blood panel, organ panel, body composition. And every 3 months, I monitor everything and I'm tweaking everything. And as a result, my health is always improving. But if you're going into this blind without a coach, without a doctor, GLP-1 or not, at a certain age, I think you need guidance and someone to monitor your health and not do it blindly. But again, if you're on a GLP-1, even more important.
Yes. So, learn about the DIAs, and this basically is a ranking of the quality in a different protein source. And there's one that exceeds WPI.
What's that?
What is that?
That's amazing.
This is
Coincidental.
sponsored by
Sponsored by
Nitec.
our sponsor. Thank you, Nitec, for sponsoring the GIP live podcast. And
So-
thank you very much.
This revolutionary product called the Nipro. It's a new protein from Nitec.
Hydrolyzed
Hydrolyzed
nitroprotein isolate. I think that's what it's called.
Yep. And it has the higher DS score than WPI, WPC. So obviously, it means it is the best quality protein.
When it comes to the
When it
DS
comes to the
method, it
DS
is
method.
also equal in
Yes.
leucine. It is also 4 times more L-arginine. And it is actually a superior, and we're talking about quite a few people yesterday at the ISSN conference, that it is, we would say, is the protein when it comes to those on a GLP-1. And we'll talk about that a little bit further.
Yep. So anyhow, and moving to this new pyramid, that this is also amazing for me, and those of you from the Asia. The pyramid used to be upside down, but now, the new pyramid that was presented by
RFK Jr.
RFK Jr. Right, this year, January 2026, the pyramid is turned around.
Like literally upside down.
Upside down, and they emphasize protein and healthy fats,
Right.
and which
The old, as some may remember, the old pyramid was 6 to 11 servings of grain a day, and really emphasized grain, which was probably very good for the grain farmers in the Midwest, but not so good for the consumers who were eating that way.
Yeah. And again, this new pyramid talks about the high quality, nutrient dense protein. Okay, so the world is changing. Okay, and then the recommendation also 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram. Again, this used to be a lot lower. Now they're recommending a lot higher, as I explained to you the ISSN.
That's in North America. I know in other countries, Japan and China, they're not recommending this. I talked to my doctor who's from Singapore. Shout out to Dr. Jason, love you, man. But he has constraints in China because of what the recommendations can be. And 1.2 to 1.6 is too high, which is ridiculous. We all know in the fitness industry, but a lot of the medical industry is 20, 30 years behind. And thank you to RFK Jr., my main man. I'm a fan of RFK Jr. I've been a fan for him for a very, very long time. He has flip the pyramid upside down and greatly increase protein intake, but not everywhere in the world is recognizing the importance of protein yet. I think it will, but they're 20 to 30 years behind.
Yeah, I think that will change. I think even there was this belief that too much protein would destroy the kidneys and wasn't healthy, and there's a lot of sort of outdated thinking, even in the dietetic community, that I think is beginning to change, and over the next 10 years will continue to change to focus on a protein-centric diet and a healthy diet that really emphasizes protein as sort of the mainstay of what your meals should consist of.
100%. And on that, I never forget a great talk that Dr. Jose Antonio gave many years ago, the co-founder of the ISSN, on protein, and it was just absolutely fascinating to the level, and we're talking studies going back for decades. We're not talking about a study that was done yesterday and there's no science behind it. It's like protein and creatine have been studied for decades, and in the athletic community it's been studied and really pushed, even up to 3 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, showing metabolic increase, fat loss, muscle retention, and with no kidney problems, etc., etc. Now, for those that have kidney disease, okay, yes, check your protein intake, and yes, work with a doctor. But for the 99% of the healthy population, high amounts of protein are not going to damage you. And it's been proven in the science for multiple decades. And again, read the ISSN position stand on that.
Yep. So, and then other key point is absolutely no added sugars. We need to move away from eating sugars.
And lactose, is lactose a sugar?
Lactose.
Is lactose a sugar?
Yes, it's a sugar too.
But that's in whey protein.
Oh no!
So they should avoid whey protein? What's the alternative? No, we won't hijack the interview.
It's okay. So anyhow, I think this is very interesting, and I think just eat your veggies and eat your protein is the message, and exercise. So there you go.
Thank you, Dr. Seiji Aoyaji. Arigato.
Arigato.
So I think for those who are interested in the GLP-1 and again prescribed medical peptide for weight loss or fat loss, we've covered that. And I think how to maximize the value of it through your diet, through the increase in protein ratio in your diet, and obviously resistance training, so important. Now, so the other buckets, of peptides, and when we talk about the popularity of peptides, certainly those two, semaglutide and tirzepatide for weight loss, are out there, but there's something new on the horizon.
What's that?
Oh, it's called retatrutide.
Retatrutide? Tell me more.
So Eli Lilly is bringing out a new GLP. It works on 3 different receptor agonists, as I understand it. So it's arguably going to be more effective than it may just blow the doors off.
Well, not arguably. They've released the data,
which look phenomenal.
Hundreds of patients, hundreds.
But it's not yet available, so it can't be legally prescribed because it's not yet approved by the FDA. But it's already out there, and
not in a small way.
Not in a small way. There are many people who are on Reta already. So where are they getting it if it's not approved as a drug, and Eli Lilly hasn't released it yet? Well, so that's where we start to slip into outside the legally permissible parameters into another place. And what's happening is some are getting it prescribed in a compounded version, but in the medical context. So there are some doctors who are already prescribing Reta even though it's not approved yet. But there's also a market for Reta and other peptides in a more questionable, context, which is calling these things not for human use, for research purposes only, research use only, RUO. And that's stuff that people are now purchasing over the internet from a website without any doctor involved, without any manufacturing in an FDA-approved facility, and that has become huge. So a lot of these, whether it's retatrutide or other peptides, which are popular but also not approved, so things like
BBC157, TB500, CKU, MOTC, SS31.
And these are all peptides that do different things, right? Or argued now. here's the catch. Two problems with this. Problem number one is because these unapproved peptides have not gone through the clinical trials, human clinical trials, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies on safety and efficacy, we really don't know. We don't have the data to know about, does it do what it's claimed to do, efficacy? We don't really know. There's rat studies, there's some human trials, but not enough to meet those requirements for FDA approval.
Correct.
So that's an issue. The second issue is when you're getting these products from a website, peptidesorus.com, right? Do you know that what's in this vial that you're going to inject into your body is what it says it is?
Correct.
Do we know that it's not in some way contaminated or tainted? And do we know that it's the proper dosing? And that's also an issue is when there's no safety or efficacy data that satisfies exactly how much of this should you be taking.
Correct.
All of it is anecdotal. So when you look at this, and the BPC 157 is a peptide that is purported to help muscle tears and connective tissue.
Part of the Wolverine stack.
Which the Wolverine stack is a popular. If you've seen the Marvel movie Wolverine, you know that he just heals. He takes a gun, takes a bullet to the chest, and it just pops out, and he's fully healed. So this Wolverine stack is the BPC 157 and TB 500.
TB 500,
which is
CKU.
another, and which can also be put into that stack. And so now, does it work? It depends who you listen to, right? So if you go online, you'll see there's two very different camps. There's the camp of those who are either marketing these products, who say they're fantastic, right? But I guess whenever you hear terrific things about something, you look at, well, is that person making money? Are they giving you a discount code? And if so,
correct,
how much can you rely on what they're saying?
Correct.
Caveat emptor, right? People, buyer beware. You really want to think about those great things. On the other hand, you do have the medical community, and I've read this at the other end of the spectrum, where physicians are saying this stuff is terribly dangerous and very risky. Well, that may or may not be true because we really don't know. So
it is early days,
right? So there's really an uncertainty to it. So the copper peptide that you referenced is something that is very popular now, more with women, I think, than men, because
there are a lot of men taking it too. The looks maxing.
The looks maxing,
which is a new term. The looks maxing. For those that don't know, it's become a huge terminology where men, predominantly
younger men
are damaging their cheekbones and taking anabolic steroids at 16 years old, taking a bunch of peptides for looks maxing to try and be the best versions of themselves. It's plastic surgery before they're 20 years old. It's Kalivica, or whatever his name is, the most famous one.
Yes.
Some stupid name. But it's crazy. It's really, really unhealthy. And this is where part of the peptide and, space is going into looks maxing, and it's extremely unhealthy.
Well, so for those who want to go in that direction, there's the risks of, let's say it's BPC 157. There's the risk of BPC 157 to the extent that it hasn't been researched. We don't have the safety data. We don't know exactly how much, how often, what is the proper protocol. It's all sort of anecdotal. Also, there's is it what it purports to be? Is it contaminated? Is it tainted? Do we know what's in there? And so this context of research use only, from a legal perspective, I deal with these cases all the time.
You've got contacted many times. People are ringing you up because, by the way, shout out. You've got your Instagram and your pager number on here.
Well,
if anyone is interested in the legal ramifications in North America on peptides or anything in this space, please contact the Peptide Lawyer, his new name. You're going to have a new Instagram.
I
new
do,
handle, the
yeah.
Peptide Lawyer,
Yep.
because you get contacted daily,
Yes.
multiple people a day,
Yes.
asking questions or in legal trouble, you know.
Sure.
And you get asked about, can I set up a business selling research peptides and not get in trouble? And what is your answer to that?
So I get those calls all the time, and I set up consultations to walk people through, the risks that are inherent in terms of selling something not for human use under circumstances that make it pretty clear in most cases that it really is for human use. And that creates some issues of fraud, and the government has issues with that. And I represent many companies that the US government has targeted for pulling a fast one on FDA by saying these things are for research use only, when there's facts and circumstances that show otherwise. So yes, I try to post on my Instagram, as well as other social media that I do, but Rick Collins ESQ is my Instagram handle, and I try to keep people updated on everything that has to do with regulations, law, and policy on GLPs, on these other unapproved peptides, on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, anabolic steroid issues. So if you're interested in sort of where the law and regulation meet improving your health or appearance, that's what I try to keep people apprised of, and you can follow me on social media.
Yeah, I think one of the areas I've seen this, and it's also my gut feeling, but I've seen this on a few podcasts, because look, every major podcaster, from Joe Rogan to every major podcaster is using peptides or on HRT or talking about it. And I saw something recently that I was rather fascinated with, and I kind of already knew it, but I believe it to be factual. One of the reasons fueling this, I wouldn't call it a pandemic, epidemic, what would you call it? This huge, interesting explosion of this atomic explosion of peptides use is the antitrust against the pharmaceutical giants. This is actually what is one of the major reasons, because during COVID, now each country had its own policy and its own take, and depending on, in North America, depending on which state you lived in, depending on if it was a red or blue state mostly, how much they were pushing the vaccines. Now, in China, funnily enough, it wasn't pushed crazy, and there wasn't the spiked protein. What do you call it? The new version vaccine. But in China and other countries, it wasn't pushed as much as North America. Now, my home country, Australia, it was pushed like crazy. Kids couldn't go to school if they weren't vaccinated. People couldn't go to the shopping center or a restaurant or coffee or go and play sports unless they were vaccinated. And this insanity push by the pharmaceutical giants on things that weren't even tested. I mean, a lot of the vaccines weren't vetted and weren't going through 10 years of studies to check for efficacy and safety. There has been now a pendulum swing the other side, where huge amounts of the world's population, millions, are anti-big establishment and anti-pharmaceutical giants. So this pendulum swing is like, well, excuse the French, but fuck the pharmaceutical giants, and I'm gonna risk. It's a psychological thing, and almost it's like it's not just psychological. It's like a stand up against this pharmaceutical giant. So I am going to risk with all of the risks, and they're very real risks, guys. I mean, you're buying research-based peptides and all of these risk matters. You may not know what's in them, but it's a stand against that big establishment. So people are taking that risk and jabbing themselves with unregulated peptides.
Right. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I think part of it is there's now, at least in the United States, there's a very significant part of our population that feels that the establishment, whether it's big pharma or the gatekeepers, the regulators at FDA or the World Health Organization or the mainstream media, all the above, are no longer reliable sources of health information. For better or worse, there's a huge population, almost maybe half of the United States, now questions because of some of the things that you've talked about. And so the idea, I think 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if you had said, I'm going to offer you this product, this drug, this unapproved peptide that hasn't been vetted by FDA, it's not approved, I think people would have said, well, it's not approved by the FDA. Now, as you're alluding to, I think people see that as something good. Oh,
correct,
the FDA hasn't approved it.
It
well,
must
then
be
it must
healthy.
work. It must, yeah, so that's not necessarily true.
No,
obviously.
the pendulum swing has gone
Yes.
too far.
And so,
when something's
yes.
that extreme, big pharma, and again, depending on which country, Australia was, especially Melbourne, Australia, was ridiculous. I mean, they were in lockdown. Gyms were closed for 2 years in Melbourne.
That's
for
crazy.
2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, you can understand why people are going the other side,
Right.
and they are prepared to take these risks. So,
And the other thing,
we
too-
need to find some healthy balance.
Absolutely. The other thing is, I think there's been a mainstreaming of self-injection that didn't exist 15 years ago.
That's
so
true.
15 years ago, if you said, okay, I've got this thing that'll make your skin, maybe it'll make your skin look better, or maybe it'll heal up your torn hamstring, or in some way benefit you, but you've got to inject it into yourself.
Injection.
I think most people thought of the idea of self-injection is what your drug addicts do, right? Or maybe diabetics, right? Intravenous, putting it in an arm. So most people, I think what happened was it started, I think, with TRT.
Yes.
Where for men, the idea of self-injecting testosterone became more acceptable. And then once the GLP-1s came out, and people started to, oh, it's just this little insulin syringe, and I'll be able to put this needle in and into my stomach, and it's no big deal. Suddenly, the taboo of self-injection just went away. And so now, oh, well, whether it's BPC or it's TB or it's MOTS or any of the unapproved peptides, the idea of self-injecting is no longer a barrier, and that has really changed the game.
And it's become fashionable. I see in my Instagram algorithm, even people I'm not following, it's coming. They must know what I'm into, or interested in. So it's peptide, and it's become fashionable, and people wanting to inject, which is crazy. As you said, 15 years ago, no one would be injecting anything. I mean, I don't like injections. I go when I get my blood draw to the doctor every quarter to monitor my health. I don't like to look at the needle. That's my trick. If I don't want to get the pain, I don't
look away. Yeah.
And another thing I have seen, and this is something I haven't actually seen podcasters talk about, but my take on it of why this industry is so effing big right now, especially the grey market, so effing big. And I think, as I said, part of it's a pushback on big pharma and the pendulum swings going the other way. The other area is monetary. The reason being, and there is TikTokers and Instagrammers that are multi-millionaires pushing peptides like crazy. I mean, I've heard rumors that some TikTokers with their follow my research down below are making somewhat up to $100 million. I'm even talking top of the level here on pushing peptides, because the reality is it's a peptide. Now, what is a peptide? And I think we need to break down some of the myths and some of the myths and the facts, okay? A peptide is a group of amino acids that's bonded together, and each different peptide, whether it's a MOTS or SS31 or your human growth hormone is the biggest peptide because it's a series of 191 amino acids bonded together, but your BPC157 is only 3 or 4 amino acids grouped together, so each one of them is different, okay? So it is amino acids, but a lot of these peptide bros on there, they're going, but it's 100% healthy, it's just amino acids, and we eat amino acids every day. Well, that's partially true. But what's not true is they are bonded together to make a peptide, but they're also chemically changed to enhance the effects or make them sustained release. So for example, your GLP-1s, you're taking them once a week. Now, that is not a natural occurring way for it to be used once a week. It is changed chemically to enhance its effects and make it sustained release. Okay, so a lot of these peptide bros are on there and they're making fortunes because the amino acid itself, and generally 99% of the world's supply chain is from which country? America. No, sorry, Donald Trump. No, the 99.9% of the world's supply chain, especially when it comes to amino acids, is from mainland China. So, the amino acids themselves, and we're not talking about the 22, 23 amino acids that make up protein. We're not talking about the 9 essential amino acids that make up the 9 essential amino acids. We're not talking about those. There's hundreds of amino acids in nature, guys. Hundreds and hundreds of amino acids. So we're not talking about the protein amino acids here, to make it clear. We're talking about other amino acids. But nonetheless, they are relatively cheap to make and relatively cheap to synthesize and create chemical bonds to make them a peptide chain. Relatively cheap. So where it becomes expensive is the Eli Lillys and all of these others that, and rightfully so, because they put so much hundreds of millions of dollars of research. I understand where they jack up the price, but they jack up the price so high it encourages this gray market.
Right. And now they have tried to bring those prices down recently in order to try to make some dent into this gray market. And when you say the gray market, so the same research use only websites that are selling these unapproved BPC and TB and the others of unapproved peptides, I can go online and I can buy the research use only version of the drug for a small percentage of that price.
Much cheaper.
And so that's what you're now seeing, and people will ask me, well, should I be doing that to save money? I don't want to spend the amount of money of going to the doctor. And the problem, of course, is that even though those drugs, unlike BPC and others, have gone through the safety and efficacy trials, FDA approves not a product, not a compound, but a specific drug product. So the version of Eli Lilly that they've made, the Wegovy or the Ozempic or the Zepbound or the Mounjaro products are approved. But that doesn't mean that the version you're getting from a research chemical website,
may not be the same thing.
It may not be the same thing. It may be different. It may, I have seen situations where people have bought something from a research use only website thinking it's one peptide, and when it's tested, it turns out to be a different
peptide. That could be dangerous.
So that becomes the question. That's the issue. And I've represented in a criminal defense context many of these research chemical websites. And some of them, admittedly, sell products that are very clean and are exactly what they purport to be. And, you're still not using it under a doctor's supervision, so there's certainly risks inherent no matter what. But I've also represented companies where it's
dodgy.
It's the products themselves are problematic. And so, it's important for people to understand that you might save some money from rather than going to a doctor, but these are any drug, any prescription drug that you're using should be under the supervision and monitoring of a physician for dosing, for side effects,
100%.
for contraindications, all of that. And so
absolutely. I mean, we're recommending work with your doctor. And what's the
And a
FDA?
dietitian.
This is not not approved, and a dietitian. So you whether you're buying research-based or peptide bro or working with the doctor and getting it prescribed, regardless, you should be working with a doctor. Regardless.
Right, yeah.
We don't recommend buying from a peptide bro. We don't recommend buying from research-based places. But regardless, you should be working with a dietitian and working with a doctor to get your blood drawn. Because if you are, and again, a large majority, I think, of people are buying these research-based peptides.
Yeah.
It's not going through the doctor. If you are doing that and you're not getting regular blood tests, you may be ruining your body and you just don't know because you don't know what's going on in your body. So I highly recommend, people go to the doctor every quarter. Again, not even if you're using peptides, and just monitor your health. If you're over 40 years old, monitor your health and treat it as I like to treat mine. Treat it like a race car. And what do you do with a race car? You get diagnostics. You get a full, you plug it into the computer and you get a full diagnostic reading of what's going on. And that's the way you should be looking at your body, as a superior Formula One race car, and you should be monitoring everything. But even more so if you aren't using any kind of peptide.
Right. And so the other bucket, the sort of BPC and all of these unapproved peptides, well, that's where people will need to make a decision. So I'll get the question. I've torn my hamstring, my shoulder, I have a lot of shoulder pain. Should I try BPC? Should I try TB? Well, look, I'm a libertarian, as I know you are, and I think that people should have the right to do what they want with their bodies as long as they're properly informed and are mature adults and can make that decision. But you have to be aware that there is no safety and efficacy data on these things. Anecdotally, yes, I know a lot of people in my circle, in the gym community, in weightlifting, who have used these products and say, man, I used BPC, I used the Wolverine stack, and I had a bicep tear, and now I feel great, and my doctor can't believe how I've healed. I've heard those stories anecdotally, but how much did you use? Well, you kind of were winging it,
and you've
right?
also got the placebo effect, and the placebo effect
without
is
a
very, very, very
randomized, double-blind, controlled study, you really don't know whether that worked or it didn't. Your shoulder may have healed, your bicep may have healed without it, and so there's a lot of risks inherent in it, and people need to recognize that without safety and efficacy, whether it's the placebo effect, it would have healed anyway, or did you use enough or not, or maybe too much, and was it what you thought it would be, are all considerations that people need to make.
100%. And for everyone on the Zoom call today, I'd like to apologize for a little bit of background noise. It's not coming through.
Not that much.
It's not surprising because it's coming through in my ear.
Oh, yes. We're hearing a lot of some screaming and crying.
We're doing this Zoom live, and maybe Fuzzy Mike can turn the camera around shortly just to show you. We are live at the ISSN 2026 conference. We got here at 7 a.m., but now it's 8:15 a.m., so the talks at the ISSN conference will be starting very, very soon. So there's a lot of chit-chatter in behind us, and it's going to get increasingly louder over the next 15 minutes. So fortunately, it's not coming through here, but it's coming through in my own ear. You turn the camera around. It's people chatting, and the
lectures will begin soon, and that hallway will be filled with a lot more attendees.
And the booze behind us will be full. So
we're on borrowed time now.
We're doing well for time, but we just wanted to warn people. So look, peptides are here to stay. I have seen, the Australian media at the moment, I think, is one of the more sensitive, am I saying that in a politically correct way? More conservative, more controlling media, maybe equal to the UK and Canada. It's not as liberal as it once was, like America, but they have been a massive push against peptides because it is now crazy. And to your point as well, Rick, and why, you're no longer the anabolic lawyer, you're now the peptide lawyer, because it's no longer the gym bros. Peptides use has been in use for decades. From the growth hormone and insulin, which both are, your G8s and your insulin are both peptides, right? And there are other peptides that have been in use for decades amongst the gym bro community, amongst the fitness community. But for the first time in global history, mums, dads, grandparents, are using peptides
Shopping mall.
in shopping malls.
Shopping
in
mall.
shopping
Yeah.
malls.
Yeah.
So it's now at a point that it's never been seen before. That it is growing out of control. And, looking at Facebook, ABC News, and Facebook The Age, and, all of this hysteria. So, of course, being extremely, you're wearing my tinfoil hat at the moment.
Put that
Rick,
back
I think
on,
you,
yeah.
you know me by now.
I do.
We'll have a nice dinner later. We can talk
do.
more tinfoil hat conspiracies. But, it's a very, very, Australia is a very, very controlled system when it comes to media, from the ABC News to the Age and everything. And if my mum's listening to this, she's going to go, "Oh, Drew, you and your conspiracy theories." But the amount of hype and hysteria against peptides, they're not even following a middle ground, like, they make, like we're talking, trying to middle ground, like, you need to be careful, but there may be some good efficacies here, but, definitely work with the doctor. This is what we're saying. No, there is like, oh, this person died. This person was rushed to hospital. This person, had it and now they're life-threatening disease. Just ridiculous, over-the-top propaganda against this industry. And the funniest part, though, is again, 10, 15 years ago, if that was up, everyone would be stopping peptides and everyone would be chewing their fingernails against it. But what I like to do when I look at these mass media news reports is go to the comment section. And in the comment section, 99% are, "Oh my God, the Age with their propaganda bullshit again," and "Oh my God, I've been using XYZ, whether it's retatrutide or BPC, and it is amazing," and or "Here's the government trying to protect Big Pharma, here's the government trying to get taxes from the Australian people again." So, again, this pendulum swing has swung so far that the mass media is now falling on deaf ears. And it's actually encouraging the use of these peptides. If the Age newspaper said peptides are bad, they must be great. I mean, this is how far the pendulum swing's come now.
Yeah, there has to be a middle ground.
It has to be.
So, and hopefully we'll get there at some point. And I think one of the things that we wanted to do today was to sort of contextualize it so that, it's not the alarmist, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, kind of over the top, in some ways exaggerated presentations of the risks. But at the same time, to not be the
Exaggerated.
hey, discount code. This is
Follow the research in my link below.
Fantastic. The reality is we don't know. We really don't know what the long-term effects are. We don't know what the side effects fully are. We don't know whether it really does. Will the copper peptide take away all of my wrinkles or not? We really don't have the controlled studies to know that. And people need to be aware that they are taking a course of sort of a human guinea pig approach when they are taking these things at this time. I would love to see more research, and maybe that's really something that we need to focus on and mention at least, is that it would be great if there could be some studies on the Wolverine stack,
Yeah, absolutely.
where you had a certain, a sample of people who had torn a particular muscle, and you give some of them a placebo and you give some of them the BPC in different doses and with different protocols to see what works the best. Does it work? Does it not work? Does a particular dose work better?
Correct.
Does it work better with TB500 or BPC alone? All of those things would be great. The problem is, who's going to invest the money to do that?
Correct.
Will Big Pharma invest when these things are already so, the cow has left the barn, right? So the genie's out of the bottle.
Genie's out of the
whatever metaphor you want to
Absolutely.
use, when it's so pervasive and available, is it profitable for Big Pharma to do it? And of course, putting your tinfoil hat back on, put it on. So there are certainly folks who would say that the medical community, particularly the orthopedic community, would not want these products out there, because if in fact they did work and you could avoid surgery by using some of these peptides, the conspiracy theorists would say that's not what the orthopedic surgeons want to happen.
Correct.
So
And
they
that may be
want
partially true.
it certainly could be.
certainly could be.
Who knows? We all have the conspiracy theories, but some of them do turn out to be true.
Correct.
So the bottom line is, I think research is absolutely essential, and right
Real
now
research.
it's not really
Forged
there.
by nature, backed by science.
And so people need to make a decision. Do I want to forge forward? And I guess it's a risk-benefit analysis, right? So maybe I could see how, and I've talked to people who would say, look, I'm supposed to get surgery. My doctor wants to do a surgical repair of my bicep tendon, or, my rotator cuff. I'm going to try these peptides as a last-ditch effort before I subject myself to the risks of general anesthesia, surgery not working properly, infection. So there's risks in any medical choice when you have an injury.
100%.
And so, but I've heard people say, I wouldn't have tried it until my doctor told me I need surgery, and I want to give this a shot.
Okay, I'd like to just summarize just before the Q&A and my take on this, and I'd like to hear both of your take on it. I feel that if the governments of the world don't make changes, it is just going to go further and further underground. I don't think peptides are going anywhere. I think the peptide space is only going to keep growing. And if the big pharmas of the world push too far back and they put up the prices too much, they're only going to greatly exaggerate and push it further underground. And when you push it further underground, there is more profit to be made with criminal cartels. There's also more safety issues. So it's only going to be bad for humanity if the governments keep fighting this. It's not going to be healthy. My personal take on this as well is peptides, I think, in the next 10 years, with intelligent, forward-thinking governments, should almost have a new category, because I think some peptides, not all, they're not, in my opinion, this is my humble opinion, this is not my legal or scientific opinion, this is just my opinion, that they are not fully drug and they're not fully supplement or food. They're not an amino acid, guys, no matter what the peptide bros are talking about. But in some regards, and some of them are not like, fully drug with huge side effect type of things as well. I think there needs to be this healthy middle ground where there needs to be regulatory, there needs to be testing, there needs to be safety, there needs to be ability to vet suppliers. And the government should tax these things. I mean, we live in all of these amazing countries, taxes, healthy amount of taxes. Australia, you've gone way too far, and there's millions of Australians, literally millions of Australians leaving Australia because the taxes are out of control. But there does need to be some taxes, and there does need to be some regulatory. But it needs to be done quickly, because this is just going to go, this is not going anywhere, and it needs to be done in the right manner and an approach that makes sense. I think part of the biggest problem, quite honestly, is the fact that they're injectable. Because, I've got a friend, a very close friend, Jimmy, if you're online. Hello, Jimmy. He has, he is will never use an anabolic steroid because it's injectable, but he'll take an oral anabolic, and therefore it's not a steroid, So there's this big thing that, if it's injectable, therefore it's a drug, but if it's oral, it's not. Well, that's not true, and when you're doing subcutaneous into the belly fat, it's not intramuscular, or it's not into the veins itself. It is different. But anyway, that's my personal take, that I think it's going to have to change, or it's only going to be bad for humanity, and even bad for big pharma, because it's just going to grow, and bad for governments because they're not going to be able to tax it. Case in point with America, with the marijuana, Vegas, they're making more money out of marijuana sales, and I'm not advocating marijuana, by the way, don't get me wrong. Please don't misunderstand that. But they are making more money from the tax of marijuana in Vegas than they are in gambling right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So absolutely. And, RFK Jr., to circle back,
My brother from another mother.
is trying to investigate how some of these peptides that are not approved could be available for people to use. He has said on camera that he uses peptides, including, I would assume, the unapproved ones.
He
and
uses methylene blue as well.
And but yes, you're right. It would require the creation of a new category because, to make BPC, for example, an approved drug would require years of phase 1, 2, and 3 clinical trials during a time of which people are going to continue to use.
And would drive up the
grape.
price too much with years of research.
So is there some new category that would be, let's say, an experimental peptide category that would require probably an act of the U.S. Congress in order to create this, that is not a dietary supplement category and is not an approved drug category, but something else based on some measure of safety and efficacy data? I don't know. That would have to happen. But if it doesn't, and instead we go in this prohibition sort of direction, we in the United States learned in 1920 what
Prohibition of
happens
alcohol.
when you prohibit something, alcohol in that case, that people want. And if there is a demand, there will be a supply. And when you cut off the legitimate supply, in this case it would be through doctors and pharmacies, etc., what happens? It's a black market, and the black market is where the dangers and risks wildly escalate. And
Correct.
so that's not good. Prohibition is not a successful policy based on history. So we need to come up with some solutions. Research is going to take us, I think, toward finding that kind of solution to the problem.
100%. Thank you, Rick. Dr. Seiji Aoyaji.
Well, I go back to GLP-1. Peptides are not magic bullets. You really need to understand what you're doing to your body, nutrition, exercise. Those matter.
Thank you, everyone. Now for Q&A, Kathy, are there any from China, from Japan, or even in English language, if you've got any questions?
Yes, first I saw some message on the Zoom chat. So the first one is about creating dosing. The first question.
I'll turn up the volume. So the first question is about creatine, did you say?
Yeah. Creating dosing.
Dosing. Okay, well maybe that's a Dr. Seiji question. So the question is creatine dosing suggestions.
In what sense?
In what sense? Like for what? I mean, for just general sense, I guess?
I guess for the athletes, we generally agree with maybe 3 to 5 grams a day, and previously people used to do the loading with 20 grams, but now I think general understanding is if you eat 3 to 5 grams a day, then it should be okay.
Yeah, and it may take, I guess, a little longer for the creatine to build up in your system when you don't. The old school idea was creatine loading. You'd take 20 grams for the first 10 days or something like that, and then reduce. But I've heard there are athletes using 10 grams a day, and even
20
more. And people should know that creatine is literally the most studied nutritional supplement, dietary supplement of all time. And so from a safety standpoint, the data is there. ISSN has a position stand on creatine, and everybody can go to ISSN's website or Google ISSN creatine position stand, because it talks about safety, it talks about dosing, it talks about efficacy, and so that's very important for people to take a look at.
100%. I think the question probably is related. Is this from China, Kathy? The question.
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, but I think the question is related to because now there is a lot more study and research. So creatine, kind of like peptides, is now mainstream. It's no longer the gym bros using creatine. Everyone is using creatine, from grandmas, grandparents, to even some parents giving it to children. I know Dr. Jose Antonio gave it to his children when they were very young, right. 3 grams a day, and because it helps cognitive benefits as well with creatine. Right. You see, so I think the question from the person, so Sajay's answer was 100% correct when we're talking about traditional creatine use for muscle energy or ATP muscle energy. But there is more and more people in the this new biohacking space, which peptides is part of and creatine is part of, and there's a whole bunch of other things that are part of. Intermittent fasting is part of this new wave that people are going to 10 to even 20 grams, not for just the muscle benefits, but for the cognitive memory benefits as well. So I think that's what they're relating to. And yes, 3 to 5 grams is correct, but there are more and more people going up to much, much higher doses for those cognitive benefits. Another question, Kathy.
Yes, the second one is, can Rick summarize his 3 buckets of peptides?
Sure. So I would look at those 3 buckets as bucket number 1, peptides that are approved for drug products. So that would be semaglutide, tirzepatide. Those are the active ingredients in Mounjaro, Wegovy, Zepbound, Ozempic. So that's bucket 1. They've gone through the clinical trials, phase 1, 2, and 3 studies on humans to determine safety and efficacy. The second bucket is products, ingredients that have not yet been approved but are kind of on the path to it. And retatrutide and maybe some other GLP type products. So now we have something where the safety and efficacy data is not yet established because it hasn't gone through the drug approval process completely, but it's on the pipeline. That's what's going to come out. And the significance of those is that they are already available, even though they haven't yet hit the market as approved drugs. They are already being used by not just gym bros, but by housewives and golf dads and CEOs and businesses. I've heard many people who are on Retta already, even though it has not yet been approved. So that's a bucket. And obviously, if you're Eli Lilly and you're going to be coming out with this product in a few months or next year, you're very concerned about it already being out there because it's certainly diminishing your return on investment. So I'm seeing sort of a crackdown on this second bucket. And then the third bucket are the products, the ingredients that have never been approved, have never gone through even phase 1 clinical trials in humans. So that's the category that we've talked about of the BPCs and the MOTCs and the TBs, which are being sold online typically as for research purposes, although there are some doctors who are prescribing these unapproved peptides under the conviction that they are safe and efficacious even in the absence of that data. And what I'm seeing is that some, here in the US, some boards of pharmacy in different states, Alabama, for example, most recently, has issued statements that if you're a doctor prescribing these unapproved peptides to patients, you're violating the medical ethics of that state. And so that's maybe the sort of the pushback we're seeing. And that's one of the interesting things with this third bucket is that the Health and Human Services Administrator is kind of saying, we want to find a pathway for these things that would ease it so that it could be more easily prescribed to people in the U.S., while at the state level, we have both a federal government and state governments, at the state level, we have a pushback saying we don't want doctors to be involved with prescribing these peptides. And of course, what does that do? Based on what you told us before, it just drives it underground.
Correct.
Because if there's a demand for these products, there's going to be a supply. And by isolating the physicians out of the equation, arguably you make it quality control to go right down into the dumpster, and safety goes down as well.
100%. Thank you. Kathy, another question? We'll do 2 or 3 more questions because we're 8:40 and it's going to be very busy in here very soon. Kathy, another question?
Yes. In the Zoom chat, there's another one about aspartame.
Aspartame.
Natural sweetness.
Natural sweetness. Okay. So aspartame. Which
Artificial.
artificial sweeteners? Oh, artificial sweeteners and aspartame. Which country is that from? That question.
China.
China. Okay. So look, aspartame is controversial, and Seiji's going to have his own take on it because the patent for aspartame is from Japan, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So, aspartame has been used now for a very long time. It is one of the main sweeteners in Coca-Cola or Diet Coke. It has been for many, many years. And aspartame has, in recent years, been very controversial on 2 areas. 1, potentially cancer causing, and 2, potentially blocking the pituitary gland, the pineal gland as well. So, same as fluoride. So it is controversial. There are, what was his name? Bioland, the sports nutrition guy on Instagram. He's very, aspartame's fine. Look at all the clinical data. I tend to go more towards RFK Jr. and he's very against aspartame and they've banned it. I'm not a big fan of aspartame. Sucralose and artificial sugars like sucralose, I think, is not as bad, but it can cause gut inflammation and bloating. So I think aspartame, though, I don't take aspartame and I don't recommend aspartame. That's my personal take. Some of it is a little bit controversial.
So what would you recommend for as a sweetener? So you've obviously got sugar, you've got agave, you've got stevia, you've got all of these different options that can sweeten, for example, a drink. Or what would you recommend?
Well, for the artificial side, I think sucralose is not nearly as controversial as bad as aspartame. Though, for the purists out there, they don't like anything artificial. So they're looking for the monk fruit or the stevia or the thormatine fruit, or, even some of the amino acids like glycine is quite sweet by nature. So, there are alternative good ones out there, and there's a big demand for non-artificial sweeteners now more than ever. Huge demand. So there are a lot of choices out there, but till date, the artificial sweeteners, I think because we've been trained, our sweet tooth has been trained, the artificial sweeteners are superior in taste, and the natural sweeteners are more challenging to get that real sharp edge. But yeah, personally, aspartame is not for me. Seiji.
Yeah, it's still used in Japan.
Yeah, it's because it's the patent's from Japan.
So,
How about, are you a fan of monk fruit?
monk fruit, I think it's pretty good. It's very sweet. I tried it, and for me, coming to US, a lot of products are very sweet.
Yeah.
So I think it's a
We
matter
have a
of
sweet tooth here.
Too sweet,
No doubt about it.
So get used to consuming less sweet products.
Yes.
and the new pyramid tells you to avoid all added sugar, added sweetness. So once you get used to sweetness, it's addictive. So I'm trained to not to consume so much sweetness, and same for the salt as well.
Right.
I mean, I think also Japanese consume a lot of salty stuff. Sodium consumption is way high. So those things are something you could train.
Yeah, but I would also like to add that Japanese live longer than most people in the world.
I know. It's
So is that because of it's a paradox? Is that because
Maybe
of
the
sodium?
salt is good.
sodium too now.
Well, no, I think salt is good in the biohacking community. I mean, I took salt this morning. I took sea salt, not sodium, extracted sodium only salt, but fully Himalayan pink sea salt. I took 4 pinches. I do this every morning. I make it for my wife and I take my methylene blue and my sea salt.
So this is putting on not your tinfoil hat, but my lawyer hat, is always to say that nothing we say in these podcasts are to be construed as either legal advice or
Yes.
medical advice.
Absolutely.
So I got the disclaimer out
That's the
there.
disclaimer out
and
there.
So, yeah, great. Do we have any more questions?
Any more questions?
No, that's all in the chat. Maybe audience can just turn on their microphone and just communication.
Sure. Is there any questions from the audience? You can turn on your camera and your microphone and go ahead.
Hi there. I'm Dr. Angela Taylor. I'm a doctor of clinical nutrition.
Hello,
And
Angela
I'm
Taylor.
wondering, is it possible for me to book a consult with Rick Collins?
Absolutely. Are you at the ISSN conference?
Oh, well, I'm not at my office.
Okay.
Okay.
No problem because
If you were here, just walk on over. I'll be happy to chat. But yes, I do consultations all the time. You can contact my office. I'll give the phone number, 516-294-0300, or just go to my Instagram, Rick Collins ESQ, and you can reach out to me there. I also have a website, rickcollins.com. You can message me there. Just, as a friend of mine says, Google me.
Google me.
And
Google.
Rick Collins
and I
is
can
the
be
number
easily
one.
found, and I do consultations all the time with people in the nutrition, in the medical space, and in the fitness space. So thank you.
Yep. And if you need any of our contacts, you can contact the GPNi, and we have all Rick's phone number, pager number, fax number, and his email as well.
The bat phone.
The bat phone.
Yes, there you go.
Good. Thank
And
you.
a follow-up question for
Sure.
Rick. This is a public forum, so I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing the names of any reputable peptide companies. And if you don't, I understand.
So yeah, I typically don't do that because some of them are my clients, and so I don't necessarily want to pitch one versus another. But when we say reputable peptide companies, if we're talking about the research use only space, that's an issue because there are legal impediments to selling chemicals for research purposes under circumstances that suggest or show that it's not for non-human use, and that it is in fact for people to use to affect their structure or function of their body. And the definition of drug in the United States is something other than food that is intended to affect the structure or function of the body. When we think of drug, we think of cocaine or heroin, but when we say drug from a U.S. definitional standpoint, that's what it is. And so, but yeah, I'm happy to chat offline about some of these issues, certainly in more detail.
Thank you, Dr. Angela Taylor. Any more questions from the audience? By all means, I mean, you've got a lawyer here, a PhD nutritionist, and bro science in the middle. No, not bro science, but someone 30 years in the sports nutrition industry. Any questions, please do ask.
I wonder how many of those who are watching are on a peptide or are on a GLP.
Hands in the audience, who's on a peptide of some kind?
It would be interesting to know, and I wonder how many are on an unapproved peptide like a BPC and what their anecdotal experiences are. And you don't have to do it publicly in this forum, but you certainly reach out to me. I'm always interested in knowing even the anecdotal information somebody who had a muscle tear or who was injured in some way and used one of the injury-related rehabilitative type peptides, did it work, and you know what their thoughts were.
Yeah, Rick is not just a lawyer, I can tell you. We had to keep changing the camera angle because we couldn't fit his shoulders in here, but he really
It's a lot of
he's
years
really
of hitting the gym.
in this space, guys.
Yeah.
Any more questions? No more questions?
All right, I'm coming back then. I didn't want to hog it, but
No, go for it, Angela. Go for it.
All right. So you guys were starting to talk about some pretty high protein grams per kilogram for GLP-1 users, and I'm like, really? Like, didn't you say something like 3 grams per kilogram?
No, that was in reference to Dr. Jose Antonio, the founder of the ISSN, on some of the research that he's done for many years to show with the athletic population, not GLP-1, to show that it doesn't harm and that it does have benefits for the athletic community. So that was just on the extreme side, on the 3 grams of protein per kilo of body weight from Dr. Jose Antonio's research, not in regards to the GLP-1. In Dr. CG's slides, he was referring to 1.3 to 1.6, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Thanks, you guys.
You're welcome,
Appreciate
Angela.
it so much. This has been just fascinating. I'm so glad I got up early this morning for this. It was so good.
Very good.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, and thank you for sharing and asking the questions. It'll be up on YouTube as well after it's edited. We've got 2 cameras here from our main man, Mike, behind the camera here, and thank you, Mike, for organizing the internet. You have no idea behind the scenes for these little things. There's a lot of amazing people that have helped put it together. Mike especially. I live in Shanghai, so he's been back and forth with me and checking internet speeds and this because we didn't want to make a mess of it, and the setup. Rick, thank you very much.
Very well.
Thank you, mate, for coming always.
Thank you for having me.
Dr.
Great.
Sage Owanji, thank you very much. And we're hoping to do this at least once a quarter, and then hopefully once a month, and then going into once a week when I have more time, because it is enjoyable, and it won't just be on the peptide space, but it'll be on the wellness, biohacking, sports nutrition space under the GPNi. So if there are any more questions, or you got one more chance, other than that, we will see sayonara, because I have not slept much. I've been up since 5 a.m. in the gym, and I'm looking forward to another coffee.
Sounds great.
Good.
Yeah. No more questions? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Shishini, arigato, ciao bello.
You got it. You covered it all. Arrivederci.
Arrivederci. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.